I've had a lot of people, you've probably had a lot of people, and maybe you are among these people who have looked and scratched their head at where Alabama's been ranked in the national 24/7 sports team recruiting rankings. They were in the 40s as of this morning. They are sitting at 34 as we come on the air today. They got a commitment today from a linebacker out of Prattville, Alabama, who's really close to where I grew up, Ian Jackson. This guy is about a 6 foot, little over 6 foot, 6'1", 6'2" kind of guy, about 210. Hey, let me stop and ask you something. I just gave you his measurables. 6'1 and a half, 210. What position do you think he plays? Is it really easy to answer these days? It's not, is it? Here's the beauty. I've been using that word a lot tonight. And watch how Alabama's recruiting a lot of these defensive guys. I think it ties into what LSU is doing, to be honest with you. I'm going to get to that in a second. But he's a linebacker. Ultimately, a lot of people around Alabama think he'll shift inside because of the mass quantity of elite edge guys that they recruited last year. And they also will recruit this year because, believe me, they're not done recruiting defensive talent this cycle. But this is a guy, I was reading the interview over on BamaOnline.com that he gave today. Those guys did a great job. They were way ahead of this one, been ahead of it for a couple of weeks. And he was talking about where Alabama projects him. And he projects as maybe an outside guy, maybe an inside guy, or maybe a dime back. We're talking about the possibility now with his physical build going into his senior year. I could be an inside linebacker or I could be a sixth defensive back. That's the difference we were talking about Oregon a decade ago. That's the difference in a decade ago Alabama versus Alabama today. A decade ago, who did you have roaming around? You had Dante Hightower. I mean, they were going to have guys like Trey DePriest coming in. Well, that's not what their inside backers look like anymore. And there's a very good reason for that. Offenses don't look like they did just a decade ago. Who did Alabama, and who have they for a long time, had to build the roster to stop? Heard our Barton and Bud, the Barton and Bud show, they were talking about this the other day, made a really, really good point that has been in the process of evolving regarding Alabama and LSU. And I think it's been sped up a little bit now with what LSU is doing offensively. But let's get back to Alabama. We'll circle back around to LSU in just a second. Alabama right now, even with this commitment, they sit at number 34. So just to give you a comparison right now, how weird the recruiting cycle's been so far and how much it is going to change, Alabama is still behind SMU. Welcome to 1984. They're behind Wake Forest. They're behind Mississippi State. They're behind Louisville. Difference, of course, being they only have 6 guys committed. Their average player rating is like a 94, 94 and a half, something like that. Their approach has been one that has been a little bit more measured. We did an interview with Nick Saban last week, and we were speaking to him about how it appears he's been more measured. They didn't get guys in camp. They haven't done as much spring evaluation as they normally would be able to do. Some programs have still been ultra aggressive and taking as many verbal commitments as they can get. Alabama hasn't done that. And you're sitting here knowing full well, we got so many kids committed right now. Well over 2 times as many kids committed to this point in the 2021 cycle as there were in the 2020 cycle at this point. If you add up total amount of kids that were committed at this point last year and this point 2 years ago, add both of those up. They don't equal the number of kids currently committed just for this recruiting cycle. You know what's coming. There's a tsunami of decommitments coming. We've been talking about that. But also, what's going to happen is you're going to get to the fall. Guys are going to take visits to places that they're committed to that they've never even visited. We've got kids, just in the past week, I've seen very high-profile kids verbally committing to programs they've never visited. That's happening a lot. There are kids who are committed to places they've visited who still have a lot of official visits to take. We got senior tape that is still left to come out on guys. Do you really believe that we're not going to have a wave of decommitments? And do you really believe when the dust settles, this team led by Nick Saban, this Crimson team here, you really think they're going to be outside the top 5? I don't. Maybe you do. I don't. But I don't want you to look at this class in a vacuum. I also want you to view it within the context of what they just brought in. Remember the class they just brought in. It was good for second nationally. I think they were ecstatic with it. Not only did they get the top quarterback in the country in Bryce Young, the formula that we always talk about, have the best quarterback you can possibly have in America and have the most elite guys that come off the edge that attack the quarterback that you can have in America. They got according to the 24/7 Sports ratings, the top quarterback in America and the top player in America in Bryce Young. And if he doesn't start this year early on, it's only a matter of time until he gets on the field. They got him, but they also got Will Anderson, 5-star edge guy, Chris Braswell, 5-star edge guy, Drew Sanders, 5-star edge guy, Demoy Kennedy, who would be a 5-star edge guy if I ran the ratings council around here, probably why I don't need to be on the ratings council. Point being, they had a ton of elite talent that they brought in this last wave, this last class on the edge. So now, what's the next position? When you watch the NFL draft, what was the position that you looked at and you said, ooh, well, there goes Ruggs, and there goes Judy, and who's going to replace all these receivers? Well, they are. They're not void. They got Devontae Smith and Jalen Waddle, Mechie, guys like that still there. But then all of a sudden you look, and you got the Hall kid from South Florida committed, and you got Brooks from South Florida committed. I personally would venture to guess they'll probably land Christian Leary. If I had to wager on that right now, I'd lean towards Alabama for Christian Leary. So they're loading up at that position now. It's just like pick which cupboard you want to load up on in any particular cycle. But they're not done defensively. And when you look now, go back to the LSU point I was making. When you look at how many defensive guys and how many edge guys and linebackers that they're taking last two classes, it's very evident to me that they're doing at an elite level what a lot of bad programs do. But they're doing it on the fly. Like they're doing it cruising at 38,000 feet. They are remaking parts of their defense. And they're doing it for a very simple reason. This goes back to listening to the Barton and Bud show this last week, I believe it was. And you can find full-length versions of that on our YouTube channel here. You could also download the podcast, the same place you get the Late Kick podcast. Really good stuff. But they were kind of observing, and this is dead on the money accurate, even though you may call Auburn Alabama's biggest rival or Tennessee or whatever the case may be, there's been one program that has consistently had their attention and garnered immense amounts of respect from Alabama since Saban's been there, and that's been LSU, because it's really been the closest to a recruiting equal and a talent equal year in and year out that Alabama's had in their division. You go into every year knowing LSU's not going to have a 4-8 season. Like they're not roller coasterish like Auburn's been at times. They're going to be there every year, even in the string of games that Alabama was running off. More times than not, those were down to the wire. Couple of overtime games. So, I mean, they were winning all of them, but they weren't dominating that series. They were dominating in the win-loss column. They weren't dominating 63-10 every time they played or anything like that. So, Nick Saban has always had his eye on LSU. What kind of offense have you had to recruit and build to stop? It's been two back. It's been a lot of eye. It's been power, 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 power. It's been an underutilization, grossly at times, and mismanagement of their receiver talent at LSU. But then all of a sudden last year, the fireworks went off, and they figured it out, and they welcomed themselves into the 21st century. Well, think about being the Alabama defensive staff. You're looking around now with the way that you used to build, and this isn't a transition that just happened. I mean, listen, they started getting inside backers like Rashaan Evans 5-6 years ago. But now when you look around, where is that offense left that you have to have those kinds of inside guys for? It's not there anymore. There's still physicality. Make no mistake about it. There'll always be physical elements to any kind of Georgia offense, Florida offense, Auburn, LSU, any kind of offense. But now that you look at what you need at the end position, and specifically that linebacker position, it's a different athlete. They know it. I think their changes at strength and conditioning is going to help a lot here. But also, look at the guys I just named that they brought in this last cycle. All of them are athletic freaks. All of them projected multiple positions. The kid they got today, this Ian Jackson cat, it's not a mistake that they're recruiting this kind of elite talent and versatility. Think about how many guys in a perfect world you could stack on your roster that you think 2 years from now could be playing inside linebacker or dime back for you. They don't grow on trees. There aren't many of those out there. So Alabama has the luxury, as do about 3 or 4 of the programs out there, to stack those kind of athletes up. But Dallas Turner is a 4-star defensive end that's still out there that I think they're in a pretty good position for. Jeremiah Williams is one out of Birmingham that's an Alabama-Auburn fight right now. There is a lot of transition going on for Alabama defensively, and it's needed, and I think it's going to be welcomed. But I was looking at the live chat. Colin and I were looking at the live chat when we went on the air, and there's always a couple of you. Alabama's tailing off. They're tailing off. They're not tailing off anywhere. They are going to be right there in the playoff conversation this year. In fact, I would love for you to give me the formula wherein a proven, what is he, a six-time national championship coach has the best quarterback in America coming to town, has all the talent I just listed coming to town. I didn't even mention the elite high-caliber backs like Roydell Williams, Jace McClellan they got last year. Guys, they're loaded. What formula is there? What blueprint is there where they're not a contender? Other than emotion and hope. I need something factual. Like I don't need the same evidence that led people to pick Notre Dame to beat them in 2012. Like I need tangible fact and logic-based reasoning. How would I ever expect them to tail off? That's not happening. You can wish it, you can dream it. It's good to dream, but you got to wake up at some point.